Hello, everyone. This is Ted Bauman, editor of The Bauman Letter of Banyan Hill Publishing. I apologize for wearing a t-shirt today, which is not something I usually do, but I'm going to be talking about the continent of Africa just now. So I thought I'd wear the colors of my adopted home country of South Africa, where I spent most of my adult life. But before I do, I want you to look to the right of my smiling face and look for a button that says subscribe. And I want you to click on it. That way you'll be able to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which you're watching this on, and that way you'll be able to make sure that you get notice of every video that I post. I think you'll find them useful and informative, like this one. So let's have a look at the great opportunity that is Africa. Let's start with an amazing fact. By the end of the 21st century, 40% of people in the world will be African. That's a lot of people, and I think it's important to recognize that even though it's far in the future, this trend has already started. People have already started, or rather the populations of Africa have started to grow rapidly. For example, if you look at population projections around the world, most parts of the world have a fairly steady or declining projection. Asia is still the largest part of the world population, but by the middle of the century, it'll start to peak and then to tail off. Africa, on the other hand, shows projections of a steady growth rate over the rest of this century. Now, the other thing to consider is how many of those people are going to be living in urban areas. The current projection is that Africa has 43% of its population living in urban areas, compared to places like here in North America, where we have 82%, or Europe, which is 74%. But look what the projections show. By the middle of the century, almost 3.5 billion Africans will be living in urban areas, which is going to be well north of 50%, even close to 75% of the African population. But the important thing is the trend line here. Look how quickly African urbanization is set to grow from where we are now, roughly doubling. Of course, at the same time, we're seeing a rapid growth in GDP, economic output in Africa, which is forecast really to rise very substantially, but between where we are right now in 2019 and in 2022. These figures are a little bit older, so those figures could actually change. I expect that 2022 figure to be even higher. And just to make sure you understand, that's $2.2 trillion. Now, that translates into pretty rapid GDP per capita growth in Africa. Now, that number, which is just short of $4,000, is shockingly low to anybody who lives like we do here in the United States or Canada or Europe, places like that. But that conceals a wide variation. There are a lot of people who have very low GDP per capita who are living more or less in subsistence agriculture and at very low levels in urban informal settlements. But on the other hand, you have a very large and growing population of people who have middle-class incomes that allow them to consume in the same level and in the same manner as people in first world countries anywhere around the world. So even though the overall level for GDP capita remains low, there are a lot of people who are at the higher end, right up there with the US, Europe, Japan, and other places. Now, as you can see from this slide, on the far right-hand side, in the next couple of years, Africa's growth in GDP is expected to be at the top of the world league table. The only part of the world that is likely to grow at the same rate is going to be the Northern African region, which includes the Middle East. Sub-Saharan Africa, though, looks from that table to be the region that is going to experience the most rapid growth in the next couple of years. And you can see that from the top 10 fastest growing economies in 2018. Look how many of them are African. Ghana, Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Senegal, Tanzania, all of them African countries, all of them growing faster than China. Ghana and Ethiopia's growth rates are incredible, over 8%. That's something that we haven't seen in China for quite a few years now. So these countries are at the beginning of their growth path, which means that they have tremendous opportunities behind them. Now, here's where I think things get interesting. The penetration of cell phones in Africa is extraordinary. It is up to almost 85% as of 2015, and it's risen even larger since then. And the reason for that is simple. Landline telephones never really got rolled out at scale other than in African urban areas. And as a result, there was no resistance, if you like, from established telephone companies to moving into cell phones instead. And as a result, Africa essentially leapfrogged that whole part of the technological revolution. And it's common to see people with cell phones, even people living in rural areas with cell phones, because they are the de facto means of communication in Africa. It is one of the most advanced regions of the world in terms of cell phone usage. You can see that now in terms of my ultimate slide, which is the share of internet users, which is mainly cell phone users, who are likely to use mobile payments in the 2018. Well, Middle East and Africa, almost 70%. That's right up there with Latin America and Asia and Pacific. But look at the comparison to Europe, North America, and the G8 developed countries, much, much less. So what this all points to is a rapidly growing continent with a lot of people moving into urban areas, people whose GDP per capita is rising, their income is rising, they are using a lot of cell phones, and they're ready to buy things on the internet. So there you have it. Africa, the continent with the fastest growing population, the most severely undertapped retail market in the world, but with the highest levels of broadband mobile penetration and the highest penetration of mobile payment systems in the world. That all adds up to a tremendous opportunity. I think that the companies that first learn to tap this possibility are going to make extraordinary amounts of money. And in an upcoming Bauman Letter, I'm going to show you one of those companies. So if you haven't subscribed to the Bauman Letter already, now is a good time to do so, because I really think this is going to be a great opportunity for everyone. At the same time, I'd like you to subscribe to this video channel here on YouTube. So please, if you haven't done already, click the subscribe button. I'm Ted Bauman of the Bauman Letter, Banyan Hill Publishing, signing off.